Hello again from southeastern Finland. Here is a video, a walking video, which I filmed on July the 6th, 2019 in the city of Kuopio in eastern Finland. Kuopio is eastern Finland's biggest city with about 118,000 or 119,000 people. It is always for me a moment in nostalgia when I visit that city, because I lived there from December 1979 until July 1987, or 7.5 years, following which time I immigrated with my family to Canada. So here I'm walking on certain streets in or near the center of Kuopio. At some point, I passed the apartment building where my mother, I, and my brother lived during those 7.5 years, holidays accepted, of course. In the 1980s, we used to spend much time in the summer holidays in our then summer cottage in the rural town of Pielavesi, some 100 kilometers to the northwest of the center of Kuopio. And my father, who is a pastor, now officially retired, used to be an itinerant pastor for much of the 1980s, and then briefly served as a pastor of 3 evangelical free churches, one in Stockholm, the other 2 in Kotka on Finland's southeastern coast, and then in Helsinki, the Finnish capital. So although he was officially registered as a resident of Kuopio for probably most of that time, most of those 7.5 years, in practice he did not live there much. He did come back there on Sundays or Mondays if he was preaching elsewhere in Finland, and then again left later during the week. At Christmas time he was there more regularly, and then during portions of the summertime. The weather at the time was mild or cool, depending on one's viewpoint, with temperatures in the high teens, I think. Fortunately, it did not rain while I was filming this video. So I briefly placed my camera towards the Valkeasenlampi pond, if I remember correctly, yes. And quite soon then I reach on this video a certain gray buildings. The first one being the maybe now former bureau of the Kuopio court. And then there used to be the so-called water affairs court in the second half of the building, and then the bigger gray building now under repair is the Eastern Finnish Appeals Court. My mother worked as a trial judge in the Kuopio district court's bureau, and then as an appeals court judge in the Eastern Finnish Appeals Court. Here I think I'm turning Turning towards one of my former residencies, yes. Not quite yet, but turning towards, yes. I'll try to oh, yes. Yes, I decided to walk down this so-called gutter street. I think, yes, because there was a man walking towards me, and possibly or probably the man would not have wanted to be filmed even for private purposes. Kuopio is quite famous for these so-called gutter streets, which are usually just for pedestrians and bicyclists, and then famous or even notorious for having so many rolling hills, because it's already not just a part of the Finnish lakeland, but also a part of the Finnish hill country. Rolling hill country, and the most famous of these rolling hills, of course, is the Puyo Hill, whose summit reaches 232 meters above the sea level. I can remember a time in the early 1980s when this particular street was still unpaved. It was still gravel, but later during that decade it was paved. Now on this video I'm approaching the place where our family originally officially lived for 7.5 years, yes. '54 Church Street in Kuopio. Yes, that is the apartment building, still recognizable. It hasn't outwardly changed too much during the 32 years that have passed since we moved out of there only a few weeks before leaving Finland. And this is now the church street, but then I decided to turn to the so-called Myhkyri street. Myhkyri is one of the many small hills of Kuopio. There is a moderate rise of maybe, what could it be, 20, 30 meters coming up soon, and then on top of the Myhkyri hill, my video will end. There, incidentally, my late maternal grandfather, Dr. Tapio Nousiainen, whose photograph is here from the 1970s on the cover of his biography, which I have written, As Long as We Are Walking on the Same Road, Tapio Nousiainen's Life and Ministry for the Fellowship of Christians. He was interviewed, he was photographed there back in November 1970 when after he had published a book about the end times, in other words, the last times before the second coming of Jesus Christ. And he was interviewed by another writer living in Kuopio, Mrs. Elina Karjalainen, famous for her children's fairy tale books on this Upponalle, or is it like a sinking teddy bear, roughly? Yeah, there I'm ascending the hill. About to reach its top. And back in 1970, my maternal grandfather was photographed so that he was facing towards the Haapaniemi city district or suburb, but below him was, for example, the Kuopio Bay and one of the tall apartment buildings, which perhaps will be seen on the background right at the end of this video. Right about I walked fairly briskly and got somewhat out of breath while walking up this hill. Although I don't think that I'm in a very bad shape, because today I was able to walk about 15 kilometers. Okay, so that was the video. Thanks for watching.